Today, I'm delighted to welcome Mike Cheetham, Head of Culture, Entertainment, Media and Digital at Diageo. As a consumer products company with over 200 brands, Diageo manages some of the world's biggest names, including Guinness, Smirnoff and Baileys. Discover how Mike integrates advertising, PR and consumer insights to build impactful campaigns that are tailored to win key cultural moments. Welcome, Mike. Mike, thanks very much.
Hello, Ian.
Hello there. Great to have you here. When I have to admit, I think of all the guests that I've ever interviewed so far, you've got the most impressive range of titles sort of coverage I have seen.
Oh,
yeah, it's incredible. Always interested in what's the background from which you come. So can you give us a bit of a sort of journey?
Potted history.
Exactly, as to how you've actually ended up where you are.
I didn't study marketing.
Right.
I did medicine and ended up in marketing, which
Interesting.
Yeah. On reflection, made more sense because I would have been a terrible physician. Yeah. But I fell into marketing by accident.
Right.
I started off in the city, then moved from the city into Darcy back in the day. We're talking a long time ago now. And then moved just into media and into creative all along the way. And worked at places like Publicis and Ogilvy and those likes and run large groups as well in terms of like agency groups. I only ever moved because I wanted to understand how to do something differently.
Right, okay.
So you start off as a planner. I moved to TV. I moved to digital. There was a time when there was this convergence between digital and TV. I moved to something there.
Yeah.
And then back to strategy. Did a lot of work in strategy.
Okay.
I've only ever international and domestic. I always moved because I was curious.
Right. Okay.
And I wanted to understand how to do something differently. And then you just basically appraise whether you can do that in your environment. If you can't, that's fine. Just move to something different. Now, it's very different. I'm now client side.
Yeah.
It's great to have a toolkit.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Lots of reference points to come back on. And you look at things in a more holistic way as a consequence. And it's not so much being a jack of all trades. It's just it's more about having a level of understanding how things fit.
Yeah.
And that's something which I cherish, right? I feel very lucky to have been able to actually learn all these different things, and it really helps in a business that's moving into a different way of working, right? Which is one of the reasons why Diageo asked me if I'd like to join. That's the way I think marketing needs to move, right? I think there's just thinking about how sales and how different parts of business need to actually orchestrate their efforts around marketing, as opposed to the other way around. I think is kind of key to growth in some cases, because we are governed by the consumer and its behaviours. Yeah. Right. And the only way we're going to ever understand that is through our marketing endeavours. There is more feedback than ever around our consumers, right? Coming back into the business. The gift and the trick is to try and think about how do you proliferate that into the business in a way where the CFO understands what its implications are. Our chief strategy officer in terms of sales understands that our on-trade director, our off-trade director, etc. One of my biggest challenges I find is having to change the language. Yeah, I have to adopt when talking to, because I come back from a very much an agency background where you talk to the marketing folk and you get used to that. Now I've got to think about talking to an on-trade director doesn't have the same level of understanding around marketing. Talk to our CFO, our wonderful CFO, in a very different way as well. It's having to adopt new ways of trying to articulate the complex, because marketing becomes more and more complex by the day. Yeah, fragments. New things always pop on the horizon. Synthetic data is the next one, then it's retail data, etc. It's a challenge, but it's also wonderful to be part of. Yeah, it really is.
You say change is good, usually. You talked about the sort of the need to speak with the CFO, the wider businesses, to really sort of sort of meld together how marketing fits into the wider business objectives. I mean, this is a theme that we always love to talk about, sort of in the podcast series, because certainly it's my belief that marketers do need to speak the language of the CFO.
Yes.
That's only going to become more important over time, and also as well need to understand the wider business objectives.
I think what's actually accelerating that is the way that we're becoming more and more sophisticated around measurement. The more sophisticated we become around measurement, the easier it is to measure success and impact, right? And we haven't had that before, right? And marketing is now more accountable as a consequence. Hence, there's conversations around how the National Audit Office are thinking how we classify marketing. Is it an investment, or is it a cost kind of thing? And I think that's what's changed in terms of like the involvement of the CFO and finance in general. And because there is becoming like that gap is closing, and the consequence, I think it's more about education. So what I find, having worked in Diageo for the past 14 months, is I'm closer to our financial chief financial officer, Connor, than I have ever been in any other business. Purely because he wants to understand the nuances of what we're doing. Right? Because he's now thinking about it through the perspective of potentially investment. Right? And thinking about, right, how do we perpetuate something that's working? Right? And to do that, it's in education. And that's something which I think has changed. Right? And I haven't experienced that with the clients I've worked across for the past decade. Right? That sudden closeness to the people who work the numbers. And I tell you, it was really interesting when I went to Dublin for an accelerator program with a lot of the exec from Europe and from GB as well, and all the finance people were there as well. All the chief financial officers.
That is interesting.
From all of the markets were in the same accelerator program around digital transformation, right? And it was always bringing the marketing and the finance worlds together, and I found that quite incredible
and positive.
Brilliant, absolutely fantastic. But it means that there's a common language around, say, digital transformation, right? And it's seen as an enabler of ROI as opposed to an efficiency. And all sides, be it marketing or finance, understand why that is. And I think it helps drive our investment decisions as well. It means that we can think differently around resource and skills and technology, because we're both in the same conversation. It's not a case of establishing what's needed in one part of the business and then like marketing and then taking it to a finance department and saying, can I have this? They're now part and parcel of the same conversation. It makes a massive difference.
How do you manage to sort of make sure that all fits in to the wider business strategy? Because obviously you're juggling several different sort of hats.
It's more to do with the way the business has defined. So, for instance, we talk about culture, we talk about PR, but now we're very much into the world of creator marketing, right? So Unilever are telling people put 50% in. Great, because they've got a lot of utility in terms of what they've got, in terms of products. It's not so much utility when it comes to alcohols. It's serves and it's cocktails, right? But we want to put a concerted effort into how we drive more of that creator marketing piece. And that's because we want to try and recruit young drinkers. And to recruit young drinkers, we need to actually understand their behaviours and how they consume our content. And so that is something where we see the lines between, say, media, digital and culture blur, right? So that's one idea. And entertainment is very much around talent. And that's starting to very much bleed into much larger pieces. For instance, Johnny Walker, we're trying to establish a position in music. If it's Guinness, we spent a considerable amount of money for the rights to the Premier League, so we're now trying to establish ourselves in football, and that's where that talent piece comes in. So we get to work with the likes of Lineker, and we get to work with the likes of Marjama, etc. But it's in service to a much broader piece. It's not so much isolated little PR stunts or ambassadorial ideas which we just want to drive. It's more about how do we take talent and embed it in a much broader idea as a business.
And that's interesting because it actually leads on to sort of the next question here, which is in terms of your marketing strategy.
Yes.
Making sure that all those different objectives sort of align them with a marketing strategy and then how you go to market with that. So could you just talk through that in terms of your approach, your thinking?
Yeah, so we're trying to move to this ideal in an omnichannel world of integrated business planning, which is more a way to say, how does marketing create value in other parts of the business? And are we capturing that value in the right way? And it places I've worked for before, like Mondelez, they've been brilliant at orchestrating it. Orchestrating marketing with their retail strategy. It's slightly harder for us because we have an off-trade retail strategy. We have an on-trade strategy with bars. We have a lot of regulation to overcome. We have duty to think about. We have a commercial obligation to our customers, be it Amazon's or Tesco's, which we also have to appease. So it's a lot harder for us to try and do that, but it's what we're trying to do at the moment. We're trying to move into this omnichannel world in the right way, to put it a better way. And it's easy to do with something like Guinness, because Guinness is so big and it's everywhere and it's omnipotent, right? So it's one of it's our biggest brand, and so we can leverage that to try and understand how we do it. When it comes to some of the challenger brands, which are really desperate to try and get out there, such as Casamigos, which is an emerging brand, with tequila is obviously a very emerging category. It's a little bit harder.
Okay.
Right, it's a little bit harder because we have to work with less. We have to think about brands that aren't quite as established as Guinness, and we have to try and have a very different conversation with our customers in terms of distribution, etc. It's a lot trickier, but that's where we're trying to push it. We're trying to push our way into that omnichannel world.
So maybe a better way of putting it is, I mean, I sort of asked the question as your marketing strategy.
Yeah.
Maybe a better way of putting it is marketing strategies.
Yes.
In terms of plural.
Better. I mean, we've undertaken a bit of a review of how we look at portfolio, for instance, and more often than not, we've treated all our brands the same. Yeah, it's the same marketing strategy adopted to all our brands, and what we've understood is that there's actually like more of an archetype approach. Okay. Some brands are like traditional, established growth brands. Some brands are accelerating at a rate of knots, like the tequilas. And some brands are just brands we just need to maintain because they almost organically, they do their bit. Right? So Pimm's, for instance, we only need to put tennis on and Pimm's sells. Right? So there's that, and that, I think it's the power of the brands we've got. Some of our brands are just so powerful in that sense.
And it's funny what you say in terms of the own label, that sort of all the groups are sort of losing share. I guess in a way it's sort of really the heart of the question is what's causing that shift. But what does that mean in terms from a marketing strategy perspective and the types of marketing you have to do?
It's a tricky one in the sense that we end up with a dichotomy of audience. We want to maintain the interests of our loyal older base, but we have to start, like everybody else out there, we have to start chasing young people and get them adopting our products. Otherwise they're never going to survive. Those brands are never going to survive. So the marketing strategies are now like kind of being forced in two directions, and it's very difficult to get right. And I think what we're trying to understand is how do we actually from a channel perspective, how do we actually behave in a different way for certain brands and channels in order to try and maintain that loyalty? And in some cases, we don't need to do any marketing, right? It makes more sense for us to just appease the organic sales that we're going to get anyway. And so we've had to take some hard decisions there in terms of the brands we want to support. But from a marketing perspective, it's getting harder. And I think some brands are also finding that, because some new challenges come into the market quite quickly. We're lucky in the sense that our brands are so big. It's harder for challengers to actually eat our lunch, so to speak. But we've still got to show growth, because when we put growth into the category moves, like I said before. So it's a tricky one. We're trying to diversify into festivals. We're trying to diversify it into brand experiences, creator marketing, as I said before. We are moving in that direction, but at the same time, we've got to keep an eye on our loyal older drinkers and think, right, how do we talk to them?
And that raises the question, of course, of the media mix. When you think about that, sort of the various channels that you use, which ones work for certain categories and so on.
I mean, we've had to adopt a lot more pragmatism around how we measure success and ROI. So we use econometrics, I think that's and media mix modeling to understand what parts of our channel mix from a media perspective are driving the best return. What we've also got to now think about is, irrespective of what that return looks like, in the long-term effect of taking, say, TV or out-of-home out of the equation, we might see a drop-off in terms of our older, loyal drinkers.
Yeah.
Right? So we had to be more pragmatic about the data we have to hand and say, right, but we can't afford to lose that market share. So therefore, we're going to adopt what we can out of those findings, but at the same time, we're going to be a little bit more intuitive.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot more intuitiveness coming into our marketing now and our thinking. We're trying to adopt new planning approaches with our agency. So there are more parts of the business involved in creating these solutions, be it media, be it content, be it creative, be it whatever, etc. But it's all in service to that. It's all in like trying to be a bit more intuitive with our understanding of channels.
And I would assume, as basically as you say, you've had this evolution.
Yeah.
That has come through. What you've realised was that there were some channels that you hadn't looked at before, maybe only a little bit.
Yeah.
But the light bulb has gone on, and you've gone, oh, hold on a minute. These were very underrated before. Actually, what we need to do is we need to get more of those, sort of more on those channels.
Yeah. And I think it's quite apt you say that, because out of home is an example.
Right. Okay.
Right? I mean, we just almost led into a solution.
That's quite fortuitous.
What are the chances?
Yeah.
What are the chances? Out of home. But for instance, we used to do a lot of out of home, for instance, on Captain Morgan. And when we actually did some modelling, it kind of pointed to we were seeing better returns with regards to our digital channels and our social. It's more a reflection on the younger drinking demographic. We were starting, there's a younger profile of drinker for that product. So when we started to divest more money into those digital channels away from, say, out of home, we started to see a bit of an effect in terms of our penetration versus older drinkers, because we're starting to come out of their mindset. We're not part of their consideration anymore.
Yeah, okay.
So it's funny that we've now started to go back to the drawing board and think, right, let's start to re-engage like out of home as a channel, because we're not just seeing it like capture the attention of our older loyal consumers. It's also having an amplification on our digital channels, and that is something that's been born of intuitiveness. That's not us suddenly putting a light bulb moment and going, right, we need to get back that. It's us going, right, let's have a think about this. We saw successes in the past. Let's reintroduce the successes, but probably let's measure it in a different way. I think measurement's always a massive challenge when you're thinking about those kind of channels. Yeah. But we're trying to bake a different type of measurement, working with our agency. Into, say, out of home, try and understand where it's influencing other things. Not just think about its direct impact on ROI, but think of its indirect impact on ROI. Yeah. And we're doing the same for Guinness as well. You might have seen it. There's Lovely Day for a Guinness all over London. Yeah. And beyond, by the way. It's not just London. But the idea being is that we want to try and embrace the medium in a different way. We just feel that it's in proximity to where we want people to drink Guinness. There's nothing more powerful, right? Yeah. You can go down the road of trying to use digital amplification through mobile, etc. But sometimes these traditional channels, and they're not really traditional in that sense, are just powerful because they have never waned or never actually been anything less than what they already are. And one of the things that we're very careful about Diageo is intrusiveness and how we think about how we think about, say, proximity and reactivity, right? And we're trying to find that very fine balance between the context, which is it intrusive if somebody's in a pub, right, and you ping something on their phone saying Lovely Day for a Guinness, or is it intrusive when they're on the platform of a station, right? That context is key. But we're trying to find that balance between how do we communicate like opportunity or promotion or whatever it might be to our consumers, but in a more reactive way, right? And as an alcohol brand, you've got to be very careful. Very careful. And that's a challenge. And I think this is where out of home has a strength, because it's non-intrusive.
Yeah.
It's in proximity to where we want people to trial or we want people to drink our products. And so that's why we're trying to re-engage in it in a different way.
Yep. And I want to come back to something you said earlier.
Of course.
Which was younger drinkers. Because I think
Yes.
there was a piece was in the Financial Times quite recently saying that actually there's been an uptick
Yes.
sort of in younger drinkers. And it's an interesting question here. Sort of dynamic has always, the perception has always been for a couple of years that sort of younger drinkers almost as well, they're not a lost generation, but there's almost like a structural decline in their willingness to drink. How do you approach that sort of from your perspective, both in terms of Diageo's business strategy, which is obviously a wider context, but then also as well, and we've touched upon it in many ways, for the marketing side as well?
I mean, there is this train of thoughts that Gen X, Gen Y, whichever one we're playing with, they don't drink. They do drink.
Yeah.
They just drink in different occasions.
Yeah.
Right. And they drink, and the way they're drinking is more discerning. They understand moderation. They understand alcohol consumption better than most. Right. And they understand as well that they can have a Smirnoff and soda before they go to the gym, which when we actually take it back a couple of generations was never even considered.
Yeah.
Right. I've had a Smirnoff and gin.
Yeah.
Or Smirnoff and not gin. That's a bit over the top. A Smirnoff and soda. I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Right. And I think they're much more savvy when it comes to that. One of our challenges is to try and think about moderation differently. And the reason being is that there's this school of thought that people who are not drinking are basically migrating to Cokes and Pepsis and soft drinks as well. Well, they're not.
Okay.
Right. They still enjoy the occasion.
Yeah.
They still enjoy having what appears to be an alcoholic beverage in that occasion. So we then have to then think about, right, how do we actually market these things in a different way? And a lot of it comes to something as simple as the serve, right?
Yeah.
We serve non-alcoholic Guinness in the same glass as our alcoholic Guinness, right?
Yeah.
The only difference being a 0 in blue on the bus, but everything, all those assets remain the same. And the idea being is that we want to try and promote the idea that it's acceptability. It's much the same as we look at our non-alcoholic gins and our non-alcoholic rums, etc. Right? It's the same approach to how we're actually marketing our alcoholic products, and we're not trying to change the packaging. We're not changing the serve. We're not changing the glassware. Nothing. It's all everything is built around trying to drive an acceptability, and I think that is an authenticity which is understood by younger drinkers.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And I think they can adopt that because they understand that we understand how they consume their alcohol or how they don't consume their alcohol, and we're trying to get a better understanding around occasion. One of our big focuses move forward as a business is understanding occasion and where do our products fit in those occasions. So we like ready to drink in cans work in festivals because that's what our younger drinkers want access to, right? It's not the same as how you communicate a litre bottle of Smirnoff to our older drinkers who want to actually enjoy it with friends at a party at home, right? So it's trying to find where our products fit and then build our marketing strategies around that. But the idea of moderation is very much core to that as well. We're just being very consistent, I think, with regards to how we actually approach that.
Okay. Which actually is a fascinating answer, given the, as I say, a lot of the talk that you often hear.
Yeah.
We always end these podcasts with a piece of advice you would give the audience. So what would be your piece of advice?
The piece of advice this is something which I've been trying to communicate to our brand teams. Yeah. Right. Is there's this wave of data and insight. Yeah. And it seems to grow all the time. And every single partner we work with has got a different insight, a different consumption behavior, different this, different that. The way I'm actually playing it with those guys is try and feel you're 100% confident, 80% of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And that's where data and insight is your tool.
Yeah.
Right. And then just be adventurous for that 20%. right? And it's trying to foster this idea of intuitiveness. I feel sometimes as an industry, we are pushing far too much towards this idealism that AI is going to be the secret sauce that's going to find the 5% of people in market who want my products. Right. And I just don't believe that. But what I do believe is that we can use it as a means to get 100% confidence in 80% of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Which actually is, which is a huge value in itself.
It is, and that's 20% of to contribute towards better creativity, innovation, thinking about how we can own uncontested spaces, thinking of how we could behave differently in established spaces, right? And that's why what I'm trying to nurture with our brand teams at the moment at Diageo. That's why I feel that the market needs to start thinking differently, because we can't keep going out there and saying AI is going to find us 5% of people who want to buy your product. It's just, we've been trying for decades to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
a universal truth. But you can't. There's no secret sauce.
Yeah.
And I just think that narrative needs to change a bit.
Okay. That's a great note on which to end.
Thank you.
Mike, thanks very much. It's been brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, not at all.
Enjoyed it.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. It's been fantastic to hear how you develop your marketing strategies, prioritising the consumer experience to build and grow Diageo's iconic brands. If there's anything you would like to ask us or hear more about, you can visit the JCDecaux Marketing Hub online. We hope you enjoyed listening, and wherever you get your podcasts, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.